OCP and the proposed new OCP support the proposed development. Obviously, the Gateway 2D6 development has been long envisioned in Merritt, and that's reflected in our current OCP and is carrying forward in the new draft document. The property owner, in conjunction with the neighboring property owners at the Palomino Estates development, have submitted a local area service petition with the infrastructure. They're estimated to be around $7.5 million. The city would borrow these funds and then have that refunded over time through a parcel tax. In addition to those infrastructure works that are identified in that local area service, the city's contracted engineer has identified an additional $13.2 million of estimated infrastructure improvements for downstream infrastructure. Those works could be funded through a variety of mechanisms, including DCCs, grants, reserves, borrowing, and potentially a negotiated cost-sharing agreement with the proposed developers of both of these developments at Gateway 2D6. The financial course of action has not yet been finalized or agreed with the developer, but they have indicated a willingness to have those conversations. Notwithstanding the infrastructure costs, staff are recommending that first and second readings be given to both the proposed OCP and the zoning amendment bylaws this evening. And I think I'll leave it at that. If council has any questions for staff, we'll be here to answer those as needed.
Are there any questions for staff? I'm just going ahead and read.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we, first, second reading now, are we going to go to a public hearing on this thing? Sorry, I said somewhere. Yeah, we're going to go to something.
Yeah, so if first and second readings are given tonight, the recommendation from council would also be to direct staff to schedule a public hearing.
Yeah. Are we going to hear from True tonight, Mr. MacArthur? They've driven all this way then.
Mr. Berlin is here too, so if council has any questions for their representatives, you certainly will welcome to ask those questions.
Yeah. You know me, I usually like to ask those questions after first and second, after the public hearing, and then get public input on that. So I don't have a lot for myself tonight, which is kind of unusual, but kind of without anything. So I'm kind of looking forward to the public hearing and see what comes out of that as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. No other discussion or any questions for staff? Oh, sorry. Councilor White?
Throughout this whole thing, I've been asked by different people if there is any information on what kind of an impact this whole project will have on our downtown, on the downtown in Merritt and the infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor White. That might be a better question to direct to either Susan or perhaps the True representatives here in terms of addressing any potential impacts of the commercial development. I know that what they're intending, or staff's belief that the intent is the commercial there would be a different type of commercial than what would be located in the city center, but I also don't want to speak for their proposal, so perhaps Susan could speak more to that.
As with any other businesses, there will be some competition in that the proposal is including a service station, fast food outlets, possibly a coffee shop, amusement type attractions. But our goal is to have all the staff that will work in those establishments be ambassadors for the City of Merritt So the goal would be to direct them downtown for further activities, for shopping opportunities, for larger restaurants, just different experiences. So I think it could work very well in partnership with the downtown. I'm not going to say it's not going to be some type of competition, but I don't think it would be to a detriment. Another vision for that area too is we're getting traffic to stop, and that's always been one of Merritt's goals since the Coquihalla system opened up, was to get that traffic some way to stop. Even if we could pull 1% off that highway of the amount of cars that go through there daily now, if we pulled 1%, our downtown core could not handle the volumes of people that it would bring in. So if we could even draw a portion of that, at least we've got them now stopped, and then it's up to us to do the work to push them further into the city.
Well, they were stopping with the tourism booth there, and we weren't bringing them into the city, so.
Well, one of the biggest complaints that we heard from the visitor center is that the people that were staffed there, very few of them had knowledge of Merritt. So they didn't have the opportunity to direct them into Merritt. And also because they were a provincial visitor center, their goal wasn't to bring traffic into the city of Merritt, it was to bring it into the interior of the province.
Okay, so in answer to my question, there has not been anything, there isn't an actual study done on what the impact will be to the downtown.
No, Gary, if you could possibly speak to that. I don't believe we've done any impact studies yet on that.
Okay, we have,
Good evening, Your Worship, Council. Appreciate the opportunity for first and second reading to be in front of you to speak. We're going to be here in support physically. Sure, by all means.
This is being videotaped, so.
My name is Gary Malenka. I'm with True Consulting here on behalf of SPAM Holdings Limited Partnership. So again, thank you. We are expecting to be here in support of physically, not necessarily to answer questions, but I appreciate you posing some questions. The question with regards to competition, there's nothing in the policies under the official community plan that requires us to do any assessment or analysis of business competition. Now that said, if you are involved, and you have been recently in the last week or two with the new draft OCP, you'll also note that the draft of the OCP is proposing 7 urban villages. And those urban villages have commercial, mixed use, residential, and they're scattered throughout the city. So I mean, I would suspect, since we are part of that urban village for ranch lands, if this gets adopted as proposed, that we're no different than those other 6 nodes in the city, including the core, where we will provide services both of commercial that may be seen as competition elsewhere in the city. But our intent is not to compete with the downtown by any means. But there are uses that are complementary there, as they are in exit 290, as well as they can be construed as being in competition downtown. But if council found the energy or the time to look into competition, it can be deemed as a good thing. I mean, studies have shown that competition can not only increase levels of service, because it creates that level of competition between businesses. If they provide better service, maybe the clientele or the patrons will go there versus the other business provider. It also ensures that lower prices. So as a taxpayer or a resident in town, if there's multiple competition, for example, grocery stores, you tend to see prices being a bit more competitive because there's more options to pick from. And then finally, variety in options. Again, pick the grocery store as an example. If you have multiple grocery stores, you're going to have more options for the customers. That I would construe as, or suggest, is not a bad thing. That can be deemed as a good thing. But, so to reiterate, we have urban villages being proposed throughout the city, which comes with a commercial component, so that could be seen as all those different urban villages could be competing with the downtown. And I don't think that's the intent of the draft, is to have it all work together. And with our project and Palomino's, and I don't want to speak for Palomino, but they do have a commercial component and a residential component. The objective is just to provide another opportunity And in our case, take advantage of the fact that we are off the highway and we can collect that tourism traffic and pass by traffic. And where possible, directly or indirectly, introduce people to Merritt as they go through in one way, shape, or form, which we think would benefit everybody. So hopefully that answers your question in addition to Mrs. Rollins.
Thank you.
Good. While you're up there, I have a question that probably the one I'm asked most about when wandering around the community and so on has become more impactful since the forest fires and all of that, and that's around water conservation. I'm just wondering if you can, for us and also for the audience that's listening, can you explain just how you are promoting wise use of water and conservation and so on your property and hopefully on the other one?
Thank you, Your Worship. We appreciate the question. With that, I'd like to actually deflect. Rich Trafal with Troika is with us this evening as well, and he is the individual or the representative, and Troika is ultimately the entity we're partnering with on the phase one, which is that commercial component we're really focusing our attention on at this point because it's the one that'll roll out first. And I'll ask Rich to speak to the water conservation and the environmental considerations that go into the design, if that's all right with you, Your Worship.
Yes, thank you. If I could just have you introduce yourself for the benefit of the viewers.
Sure. My name is Rich Threlfall. I'm with Troika Management Corp. And we're partnered in this project and looking to lease this land and develop it out, the first 7 acres. Just like Gary mentioned, I wasn't really prepared to do any answering of questions, but we're always ready to be passionate and talk about the projects that we're involved in. So if you wouldn't mind just repeating the question again, make sure I can answer it appropriately.
Oh, basically, the community is quite interested in water and how it's going to be used and so on, because we've come through quite a serious drought and so on, and it's very much on people's minds. And so when they realize that there's going to be another fairly decent parcel of land brought into urbanization, one of the big questions is, well, how are we going to be able to have the water use carefully done?
Right.
So if you're able to enlighten anybody on this one, I would certainly be appreciated.
Yes, for sure. I know from a perspective of designing the site, our company, you know, our motto is building sustainable communities, so it is a key factor to what we do. So we will be employing on this site, you know, assuming it gets approved and goes forward, we would be looking to focus our efforts on rainwater conservation and using grey water where we can, xeriscape landscaping, things like that to ensure that we minimize the use of water throughout, you know, different uses on the site. So in a traditional sense, a lot of the water on a site would be used for landscaping, and so we would really focus on that. And you know, I know on some of our preliminary concept plans that have been presented in the past include like a stormwater sort of pond and a little stream area and river, but it wouldn't run, it would be dry sometimes. If there's not enough rainwater there, we're not going to put good, clean, domestic treated water into that system. And so items like that is what we would use to really make sure that we do our best to conserve water where possible.
Okay, thank you. Susan, did you want to comment on that at all?
I think you're on mute, Susan.
Someone turn around.
No, I think Rich answered that sufficiently for our needs.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Law.
Thank you, Mayor. How's your relationship with Palomino so far? One of the challenges we've had as a council, we've been approving of projects, but not a lot going ahead. And how's are we allowed to talk about that piece? Because we want to make sure we move forward with this and the LSA and everything. We really want to have a confidence level. I want to have a confidence level that things are moving in a timely manner on this project.
Sure.
And how's that coming along?
Through your worship, thank you for the question.
Again, I'll let Gary Malenko speak for that.
Technology is always fun.
Yeah.
Through your worship, I appreciate the question, thank you. Our relationship with Palomino has been pretty close. I mean, we have had to be very tight in respect to communicating back and forth, whether it's in our discussions, negotiations with the city, or any other stakeholders that we're dealing with, MOTI, for example, or Ministry of Forestry and Lands. We did, and I have to recall I believe it was in actually February of this year, where we actually entered into an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the two parties, that we would work closely together, and we formalized that just so it was understood, and so council was aware of that as well. So, I mean, yes, we're aggressively working through it. We're on discussions with the consultants back and forth almost weekly. Had a few lulls, but as things picked up, we've been on almost weekly calls. And we sit down with the city on a monthly basis, and we try to participate that way as well, all three parties, to move forward. And as we advance this, and as they get their final approval, and as we hopefully get our final approval, we'll be working a lot more closely with the city on the finance side and the planning side to move the project along in the different aspects that are highlighted in the staff report. So yes, we're constantly in discussions with Palomino, not only the consultants but the owner as well.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions for our three presenters? Sounds good. So we'll we'd be ready to have a mover and a seconder for the first motion, is that right? Okay, I'll read it out. Recommendation that council give first reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2327, 2021.
Second.
Councilor Etchard, and I don't know which one was the first.
I think I saw one too.
All right, any discussion? Very good.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You know, I plan to vote yes on the first and second reading. I think this project might be a benefit to Merritt, and I'd like to know what the public have to say about it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion? Any dissenters? Carried. Motion is carried. And we'll go on to the second part now. That council gives second reading to official community plan amendment bylaw number 2327, 2021. Are there any questions for staff?
One of us moved on, one of us second.
Okay, so mover and seconder, who was first?
Councillor Locke, and that's on your motion. Councillor Locke, and that's on your motion.
Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now we move on to the first reading of the zoning amendment bylaw, and do we hear from staff first, or?
Don't think you have anything else to add? Nope.
No questions from council? Nope. Could I have a mover and a seconder that council give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 2328, 2021?
So moved.
Councilor White and Councilor Etchard.
I've seen this.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving right along, that council gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 2328, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Luck and Etchard. Any discussion? All in, whoop.
I was just waiting until we had the first and second reading before we did any kind of questions or debate, because I know that we've heard a lot of information over the time, and I'm really happy with what I've seen so far. And I think that with all the OCP discussions that we've had, this is a way to develop different areas in the small neighborhoods and small little areas of nodes in town, and this is a positive step. And if we see the development going up the hill for Palomino, this will be kind of an attractive development area, so showing that Merritt is spreading and growing and encouraging it, and I think it will be an attractive piece for visitors coming to town as well. So I'm excited to see this. So this wasn't a question, so I'm just excited about it, and I think that Spam has put through some good information, and thank you everyone for the information presented.
Thank you. Any others? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And now we need a motion that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing.
So moved.
Second, Buck and Bangu. Any questions for staff? Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now back to information items? No. All right. Any notices of motion? No. I guess I should say thank you to the presenters tonight. I see Susan's already gone, so I can't say thank you. So there we go. Okay.
I'm stuck.
I'm enjoying
Because you're moving on. But thank you very much for asking the questions and for letting us answer them to you tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Susan.
I still know when she's going to
Okay.
Thank you.
No notices of motion. Any reports from council? Well, I do have one slightly. I'll let you go first.
Oh, just a quick question. I'm not sure if I'm up to speed. What are we not doing for Remembrance Day, the cenotaph and everything? Is that going to be virtual again, or are we going to have small crowds? Just so the public might be aware of that. Does anybody know?
I believe it's going to be very, you can correct me, anybody. I believe it's very much like last year that spectators are welcome, but they will have barricades put up so that you don't intrude on the ceremony itself. It'll be viewing it from a distance. I believe that the Legion is again doing what they can, but there will not be a ceremony in the Civic Center. I believe everything is outside. Is that?
I kind of assume that, but
Basically, and I know last year there were a few spectators that wanted to be there, and I'm usually one of them that
Your
kind
Worship,
of remember my dad.
I think you are correct. That's certainly my understanding. I actually realised that I wasn't sure about this and asked at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, and unfortunately wasn't able to get an answer before the end of the day. So we do apologise about that.
Yeah, the paper had some information on it last week, and I believe it was very similar to last year, that you're welcome to go, but you won't be participating in the ceremony. I think the laying of wreaths is vastly cut down. I imagine that the city has a wreath that will be presented, but it's due to COVID, it's still quite restricted.
okay. Thanks for that.
And that kind of leads into just a comment from myself with Merritt Country Christmas is still continuing on, but it is a vastly different process from previous years as well. Last year it was not held at all. This year, permission has been granted to have a parade, which will be the Friday night. There will still be the traditional tree light up in Spirit Square on Monday night. Monday the 22nd, I think, is the start of Country Christmas Week. But it won't be, there won't be singing involved or anything that we have to breathe on the neighbor. But the community is asked to do the traditional bring mittens or scarves or toques or anything like that to hang on the tree, and then all those items that are donated are turned over to people in need. Thursday night, there's not the traditional concert as such, but we are working with various groups to do something that can be presented on the radio that night and featuring local people that are there, everything from small choirs and ensembles and so on. Local people be broadcast on the radio Thursday night and also from there till Christmas. So something to say that the community is still wanting to participate and things like that. And a special caution that the parade Friday night is on a different route. It's not the traditional route. That one has caused difficulties in the past with the tightness of some turns, so they're trying to do it a different way, and the end of the parade will be coming down past the Colchena, or the Coldwater Hotel on Colchena Street and down towards the United Church, and it will disperse. So it's quite different, and I hope everybody doesn't show up thinking that it's in the same place again. And that's it for that. Anything else from council? Okay. Letter of support. And that was regarding Spayum Holdings. So, should I read it out? Or
It's not necessary, Your Worship. But yes,
it's signed by the mayor.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And other information items concern the status of the retail cannabis referrals. And so if there's any questions or comments on that, you're welcome. And seeing no response.
One more item, Your Worship, if I may just say an additional minor information item with the mention of COVID earlier. I did also want to note that this is the first meeting of council, and so should probably give you, as council, the information update on this. First meeting of council where, due to the interior public health orders, so as you know, obviously, the issue about public attendance at meetings has been somewhat fraught over the last 2 years now. For a while, it was the case that the public were allowed in, basically not exactly untrammeled, but with only masks and distancing. Then we had to return back to contact tracing. As of this evening, this is the first meeting which is being held with a new requirement that all attendees have to present vaccine passports as proof of being vaccinated, or public attendees. But obviously, of course, if any member of the public, for whatever reason, either is not vaccinated or doesn't wish to share that, their vaccination status, they can share the meeting online. We stream everything on Merritt.ca/watch meetings. And if anyone wishes to make any public input, then they can do so by emailing us in advance or by arranging a video link, so we can set that up as the public require. So the good news is we are in a much better position now to handle people attending the meeting when they can't be here physically in person than we were even a year ago, never mind 2 years ago. But I just wanted to give you an update, and for also for any of the public who are watching or listening, that as of this evening, the Interior Public Health Order has been in effect for some time, but this is the first meeting that it's been applicable for. Vaccine passports are required for public to attend public meetings in Merritt.
Yeah, and that affects the Country Christmas deal as well, because Saturday, I forgot to mention, is the traditional craft fairs Friday night and Saturday, and COVID protocols will certainly be there, and people that wish to attend do have to have their vaccine status, they're actually status evident, which is a little different, and hopefully everybody can be patient, because I don't know whether lineups will happen or not, but everybody's doing their best to make things function. And without further ado, this meeting is terminated.